On today's episode of the Raise podcast, I caught up with Nate Clapham, the Assistant Vice President for Development and Annual Giving at the University of Northern Iowa. Nate's approach to fundraising is simple. He expects to win. We covered a lot of ground, including why Nate is so passionate about education philanthropy, why he pursued a master's in this field, and how he evaluates every ask with the 6 Rights strategic giving framework. And it was fun catching up with another Iowan. Here we go. Greetings, Raise podcast listeners. Brent coming in live from my home office as we all settle into this new normal or abnormal associated with COVID-19 coronavirus. We are in the thick of the university and broader global response, and we're trying to move forward and continue to advance our discussions around the advancement space, but at the same time being sensitive to what's going on in the world outside. It is my privilege to welcome Nate Clapham from the University of Northern Iowa to the show today. Nate serves as the Assistant Vice President for Development and Annual Giving at UNI, has been a listener of the podcast, and Nate just told me that 15 minutes ago, he was interviewing someone who referenced these podcast episodes with no prompting at all. So Nate, welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to be here, Brent. Thanks for having me. And that is 100% true. Literally 15 minutes ago, I had a candidate who has experience in higher education, not necessarily in fundraising, referenced the Raise podcast and said he had listened to 18 episodes of the Ever True Raise podcast. So it's an honor to be on here now.
Absolutely. Well, we're thrilled to welcome you, and obviously there's a lot going on in the world, but I do think in the midst of trying to establish an immediate response and establishing new approaches to work, there is still more than ever in some ways a need for philanthropy to move forward. And so I'm excited to learn more about your professional journey and to get your perspective on life at UNI, and then also more broadly. We've gotten to know each other over the last 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer than that through the case circuit. And I'd love to just know a little bit about your professional journey to this point and what your team and day-to-day looks like at Northern Iowa. How'd you get to advancement?
Yeah, thanks. First, I do want to say us at UNI, we're thinking of you and everyone Ever True through this situation, and send our best wishes for everyone to stay safe. So
thank you. Likewise.
Grew up in Northeast Iowa, just like you, Brent, in a small town. I went to Coe College as a student athlete, which is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and had an incredible experience there. And part of that experience was working in the admissions office as an undergrad, providing tours to prospective families and prospective students, and fell in love with that. Fell in love with meeting new people, making connections, building relationships, in a sense, selling the school and all of the great things that happen there. And so when I was graduating, I wanted to get into admissions work at Coe. Unfortunately, they didn't have an opening, which is understandable. So I took a job in the private sector in downtown Cedar Rapids, but through my relationships that I had built at Coe, was invited to apply to the director of annual giving at Coe in 2009. I had known the vice president who was there, and when he reached out, I said, I know nothing about fundraising. He said, I don't care. I want you to apply. We'll figure it out. So I did, was connected there with a former co-grad who actually serves as a mentor of mine that helped me immensely, learning the ins and outs of annual giving, from direct mail to phone to email was just starting to become a more significant channel. So I spent some time doing that, moved into a development officer role at Coe. And then in 2012, had an opportunity to come on board at the University of Northern Iowa Foundation. We had actually moved to Cedar Falls as a family. So this was going to be a great opportunity for me to join UNI. So I joined the foundation here in 2012 as director of development for one of the colleges. Had an incredible experience raising money on behalf of that college, social and behavioral sciences, and then moved into a to a management role about 4 years ago, into a outreach position, working with communications and stewardship and annual giving. And then most recently, as you referenced, about the beginning of November, when a new vice president came on, shifted roles to oversee our collegiate development officers. We have 6 development officers housed in our colleges, and then also annual giving.
Love it. Great overview. And I want to get back to where you are now, but going back in time a little bit, I can't imagine a better training for development than being a campus tour guide. When you think about just being able to understand the overall story, what differentiates an institution, to be able to maybe even answer, competitive positioning questions as families are contemplating various alternatives. I mean, what was that like? Any memorable moments from the campus tour experience that you think back on now?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The parallels are definitely similar. Those tours were really an opportunity to build a relationship in a matter of 45 to 60 minutes, much like the work that we do now, sitting across the table from a donor. So it's really about asking those questions. What are their passions? What are their goals? What would they like to achieve? What kind of experiences are they looking for? So it was an opportunity to make that connection with the students, and in addition to their families. The parents.
And how much of that was really training versus maybe more intuitive for you? I mean, I'm sure on the spectrum of campus tour guides, there are varying degrees of professionalism and whatnot. How did you think about, I don't know, the skill of the sale in
yeah, I don't know that there was any skill. It just was. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy building relationships. When I graduated, I remember just saying, all I want is a job where I work with people. I just wanted to work with people. My wife gives me a hard time all the time about why can't we just go to the grocery store and get what we need and then get out? Why do you have to talk to everybody? So I think it's just one of those things where I just enjoyed the curiosity of learning about people and what they were wanting out of a college experience, and hoping that we could offer that to them. One of the coolest experiences actually happened after the tour and the decision was done. So following every tour, I would write a handwritten note to each student. And there was probably 3 or 4 times where the next fall I'd be in the cafeteria or walking across campus, and this freshman would run up to me and said, "Hey, you were my tour guide. I still have the note that you wrote me. You were one of them." It was really, really neat to hear that type of feedback and that type of impact on what is a very big decision in people's lives.
I love that. I worked the desk at the athletic center at Brown, and so while it wasn't an official tour, from time to time families would just drop in, and then you'd start to chat with them about why they were visiting and what my sort of student athlete experience was like. So it's sort of a similar vibe. But I've got a couple of people who when I see them today still talk about meeting at the front desk of the athletic center. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
And like many people, your first advancement job was for your alma mater, and I feel like that's sort of an interesting transition when you go from the student experience, the student athlete experience, to really kind of being on the inside. And so, in a certain regard, I'm sure you were really well positioned because you understood the campus, the culture. You had just benefited from the education, but there was so much to learn, from the lingo of advancement to all the acronyms people use to your colleagues and so forth. And I guess that was also a time when we were sort of in the midst of the financial crisis, and I'm curious how much that was top of mind, as we are now sort of potentially in the midst of another, if not financial crisis, at least global crisis that has financial implications, certainly in the markets. And so curious if that was a factor, or if you're able to just focus on the basic blocking and tackling of advancement at that time.
Yeah, it was both. One of the things that we talked about, I remember specifically at Co and with this individual that helped me come on board, was, we can't, and this was reinforced in my master's. One of the things we can't do as fundraisers is make assumptions for our donors. So we are going through some difficult times right now, very, very difficult and serious, just like in 2009 with the financial crisis. So there has to be some sort of sensitivity towards that approach with fundraising and acknowledging the situation that's happening. At the same time, maybe more now than ever, philanthropic support is critical for the success of students that are going to need that backing. And we need to continue to move forward and approach our work just as we do each day, maybe with a little bit more sensitivity, but also there's going to be individuals that still want to support and want to do it in a significant way. So we can't make assumptions there for them. So going back to I remember one of the first things we took a look at was the phone, and just did a deep dive into the analysis of the phone program, where it was at, how many weeks we were calling, and immediately decided we have to extend this. We're not calling long enough. We're leaving money on the table. So that was one of the first things. In addition to learning the lingo, no idea what a lie bunt, what a side bunt, what any of that language was, the basic blocking and tackling, I remember that was one of the first big decisions, was extending our calling period to reach more people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that those same kinds of reassessment of which channels are working today is going to continue to happen. I mean, we obviously are now entering a phase where there will be no or very limited in-person engagement. There will be limited field visits. So every metric that we've had around event attendance all the way through gift officer, visit metrics is going to be reevaluated, if not temporarily, potentially even for longer term here. And so that all, has to play out in the coming weeks and months. But I think that, there are a few better ways to get a crash course into the business of advancement than diving into the annual fund, especially in a relatively small shop where I'm sure, depending on the day of the week, what you were doing could change pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we actually just talked about that this morning, Brent, about, what does this new normal look like? You talked about the metrics and whatnot. What we're having right now, this Zoom call, should that be incorporated into the metrics as a move, as a visit? And, do you
have a point of view on that yet, or is it too early to say?
Yeah, it's too early to tell. I think, we just started talking about it this morning. I think at some level we're going to have to consider it. Absolutely. Because again, I think now more than ever, we need to continue our engagement with our donors and our prospects, make sure that we are here to answer any questions they may have about how things are being handled, but also we still have to advance the relationship, continue to deliver for them, for their philanthropic goals. And so, if we can connect this way, that's definitely a move that should be noted.
I agree. And there's kind of a conversation going on LinkedIn right now about that topic. And we're going to be showcasing some other examples of video stewardship, video cultivation, video solicitation. And I think there is kind of maybe a misconception that it's not as good as being in person. And absolutely, I wish we were filming this in Cedar Falls right now. We're not. It isn't as good, but it's pretty good. I think there are ways in the donor context where we might be able to make it even better. I heard something from Keith Hannon at Cornell University the other day, where he does a lot of athletics fundraising. And as he's been using Zoom to do some of those stewardship and even solicitation conversations, he's been starting to invite coaches or other key stakeholders to join as participants who never could have visited the donor in a field context, but now, frankly, have more time because of disruptions to athletic schedules and so forth. And so it's kind of a neat opportunity for the donor to get to have a one-on-one conversation with the coach or even student athletes in a way that they never could in a traditional field context. So, there's opportunities for creativity at a moment like this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think those are great insights. It makes me think, brought this quote up this morning, and you're a sports guy, and the old Wayne Gretzky quote of "Don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where it's going." And I think that's exactly what we need to be thinking about doing as an industry and having those conversations.
Absolutely. I'm curious though, it's one thing when you are sort of selling the mission of your alma mater, right? You went to Co as a student athlete. You're a campus tour guide where you're selling the mission. You're a beneficiary. You come back to the school, probably a very natural or as natural of a transition as you can have. Um, and then you make the decision to join somebody else's organization. And I'm always curious when you think about kind of the balance of professional growth with then selling a different mission, and how do you get excited about the UNI mission and what makes it distinct? And do you go on a campus tour when you're joining a new advancement shop? I mean, is that part of the onboarding? If not, should it be? What was it like to make the decision not to sell the mission of Co anymore, but to move to a different institution?
Yeah, it was one. If I'm being very honest, it was one I was concerned about because Co is and was a very special place to me, and making the decision to leave the alma mater to a different institution was a very big decision to make. And I can honestly say, and this is nothing negative towards Co, it's just how great UNI is. I've not looked in the rearview mirror once since making that decision. It's just been an incredible fit. The people are amazing, and the one thing to talk about the different missions, the thing that I think that's helped me is I'm an absolutely firm believer in higher education. So whether it's Co, whether it's the University of Northern Iowa, I just firmly believe in the opportunities and the things that higher education can provide for people. So
why do you feel that so strongly, Nate? I mean, what in your journey helped generate that passion? Because obviously higher ed's under a lot of scrutiny right now, and there's a lot of other people who'd feel the exact opposite of how you just sort of expressed your commitment to the sector. I feel the way you feel, but what makes you so bullish on the need for higher ed right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, and I think the top ones for me are personal growth is like none other. I think at that time in your life, when you're 18 years old and you think you know everything in the world, you get exposed to many different things in higher education. Some of them positive, some of them negative, but I think as a whole, it makes you grow and become. It makes you step back and think about things differently. And to me, that's what higher education is about. It does that in the classroom setting, so that I think the academic side, the academy is extremely important for that, to make you think about things differently, look at worldviews differently, have conversations with people that have different thought processes, beliefs, and maybe question your own. Then there's things outside the classroom, that from building lifelong friends to whether it's collegiate athletics or music or the fine arts, that make you understand how to manage time, make you stretch yourself, and through both of those, you build relationships. And for me, that's the key. Is in college is where I was able to build relationships personally and professionally that have impacted me in countless ways since graduation, and I think will for the foreseeable future.
Love it. And so you got excited about the UNI mission. You jumped at the opportunity. You've obviously had the opportunity for growth. What stands out along that journey at UNI? And when you think about maybe some of the favorite memories over the last several years, what comes to mind?
I think one of the one of the things that stands out right away for me is when I was hired in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Development was relatively new in that college, and there was an individual before me did an outstanding job, and he's a good friend of mine, laying the groundwork for development and fundraising in social and behavioral sciences. But what was fun was the day that I started was the day the new dean started. And so her and I were able to go on this journey together, build a relationship between the two of us, take that externally, and forge relationships with donors and alumni and friends of that college and the institution, and have just, I'm really proud of the work that we were able to do and build on what was done before us, but really take it to another level. And then since I've moved out of that role, be able to hand that off to the next person to continue that. The dean is still there. Her and I, I consider her a mentor. We remain very close, but that was really fun to kind of start fresh, her and I on day one together, and just enjoy the journey along the way.
I would imagine in that context, maybe some of the donors were cold, if you will, if there hadn't been kind of a lot of programs or really externally oriented dean in the past. I mean, did you do anything kind of in somewhat of a startup mode that you'd recommend others consider if they're coming into a similar context?
Yeah, I think one that I'll always be appreciative of is her willingness to go with me, to be external, and to be in front of doors, and to know that her role is to share the vision and share the passion that she has for the academic programs and the college that she is leading. And I think that was big. We were able to, her and I guess the first thing I would recommend is build a relationship with that dean first. Her and I were able to build a really close and strong relationship that allowed us to work well together. So we could kind of know each other's moves and what we were going to say and when we were going to do it. That just led to a lot of successful relationship building. So
can I ask, as you advanced those donor relationships, I'm sure there was a cultivation phase, just getting to know people. But as you started moving to a phase where you were making the ask, did you make the ask? Did the dean make the ask? Did you trade? I mean, was there, joint meetings? I mean, just what's that mix of work?
Yeah, I think it's something that you need to figure out. You have to figure out that, right, who is the right solicitor in that relationship with that prospective donor. For us, a lot of times that was me. That was where I was comfortable. Maybe not that she wasn't, but it was just a little bit more natural for me to be able to play off what she just said, of really doing an incredible job talking about the impact that a gift could have, and then sliding in and making the ask and making it a cohesive duo that didn't feel forced or feel kind of mismatched. It was just a good thing that we had going on.
That's great. Well, along the journey, I know you felt compelled to pursue your master's, and I'm just curious if that was something that you'd been thinking about for a while, what the catalyst to actually do that was, and then obviously part of what I was excited to discuss today were some of the specific takeaways from that program. But just tell me a little bit about deciding to pursue your own continuing education.
Yeah, it was something that I'd always had in the back of my mind, and honestly, I just needed a kick to get it going. I was waiting for, I was waiting for that right time. Right? When's the right time to do this? And there's never really a right time as a working professional with a family. And so a colleague of mine had gone through this program. It was a master's in philanthropy and development at St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota. And she had gone through the program and had given my name to the program director, who then reached out to me. And it was just the little thing I needed to make the decision to make the move. So when the program director reached out to me, I said, thank you. I've been trying to pull the decision on this. This is what I needed. So decided to apply and go through that program, which was a tremendous experience and learning opportunity.
Tell me more about it. And would you recommend it to others, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the older philanthropy and development master's programs in the country. And it's evolved as higher education has evolved. So the format that when I went through was It was a blended format, so you did online classes, just like we're doing Zoom meetings, virtual, but you also had a 2-week residency for 2 summers. So summer of 19 and the summer of 18, I spent 2 weeks on campus in Winona in an intensive learning environment where for basically all day and beyond, we slept, ate, learned about philanthropy, development for 2 weeks straight. And it was just a really neat opportunity to do a deep dive into this industry and this world that we live in every day, but also to be able to connect with your cohort and the individuals that are going through it with you and hear about their experiences, because not everybody is in higher education. You can there was from the arts to K through 12 to Catholic charities to just community colleges. It was just a great opportunity to learn from them.
Are you still in touch with that group?
Absolutely, yeah.
How many people were in the cohort?
We have 10 in our cohort.
Wow, so really tight knit.
Yeah. So we're still in contact. In fact, just with the coronavirus happening, we're exchanging. We're in GroupMe together, so we're exchanging our GroupMe messages about what is each institution doing, how are you handling the communications with donors, what are you doing to engage with your constituents during this time of a little bit unsteadiness. So we continue to bounce things off each other, and
that's great. And so one of the I guess big takeaways from the program, or you got exposed to this concept that you shared with me previously called the 6 rights. And I was really intrigued when I first heard you describe this, and maybe it's common knowledge within the advancement sector, but I'm guessing a lot of folks haven't been exposed to it. And so I'm wondering if you'd give us just a little bit of a free taste of the St. Mary's degree here, and just a little sample in case anybody's interested in learning more about the program. But tell us about the 6 rights and why that stood out to you as part of that curriculum.
Yeah, it was actually in the last class that I took at St. Mary's called Strategic Giving, and it was taught by Audrey Kinsey, who is the VP at St. Mary's, who is incredible. I hold her in very high regard, and it was through a book that we read, The Artful Journey by Bill Sturtevant. So if anybody's read that, and he talks about these things that need to be done in the cultivation period leading up to the solicitation. And in class, we talked about the 6 rights, calling them the 6 rights. And the 6 rights are the right solicitor, which we talked about, is who is that primary player that should be making that ask? Is there a secondary player involved? This is a key variable throughout the process of who is making that ask. The right time. I think that's something that we're all thinking about during our current situation. The solicitation should occur when you feel the timing is appropriate. And really that's trusting your gut and trusting your instincts and your conversations that you've had with your donor. The right vehicle, is it cash? Is it appreciated assets? Is it a deferred gift? What does that deferred gift look like? Is it some sort of trust, or is it a bequest in the will? The right location, and what that is when you make that ask, where is he or she going to be most comfortable? It's probably on their turf, but research shows that when people are comfortable, they respond more positively. So making sure you get that right. And then the last 2 really go hand in hand, which is, I think, the right reason, the right purpose. There should be a specific purpose for what you were asking for, and then hand in hand the right amount, and asking for that specific amount when you present that proposal. So what I talk about with our team here at UNI is as we're going through our moves and talking about the intentional strategy that we're creating for each prospect who we're planning to solicit, do you have the 6 rights correct? And just making sure that as you're building the relationship and moving through, that you can check these off and making sure that all of these are in place. So when that proposal is delivered, you have all these things nailed and should feel very good about the answer that's going to be given.
So as you're doing either one-on-ones with your team, or as you've thought about, first of all, thanks for that background. I think it really is interesting. It's a great framework. But as you're trying to apply it, are there questions you ask to help get at whether we've got the right person, the right time, the right vehicle, location, purpose, and amount? Like, how do you start to know? Because some of these you're never really going to know perfectly, but you can reduce the risk of being completely off, I'm sure, through a variety of questioning or other tactics.
Yeah, we actually a couple months ago had a strategy meeting because with two gift officers who were working with a donor on a possible ask, and one of them had said, "Yeah, I'm just not sure it's the right time." So we got together, which is always the best thing to do is talk through the strategy and have these strategy sessions. And, so I could hear about the background, what was done previously, what were the conversations, what's the giving history, where you're at in the current one. And through that conversation, it was determined by everybody it wasn't the right time. We needed to do a couple more moves, a couple more conversations with the individual, and it wasn't necessarily maybe the right time in their lives either. So through that conversation, and really it's just asking about what has taken place so far, asking why do you feel like it's the right time, or maybe why isn't it the right time, and then I think just being able to talk through that helps people, and when you verbalize it, it helps you come to realization either to move forward or maybe I need one more cultivation call, just to kind of that pre-proposal conversation before the ask is made.
And some of these are probably intertwined. Like, for example, when you think about the right vehicle, well, if it's cash, then now might not be the right time. But if there's a different way to structure it, then now could be the perfect time. And so you probably also have to make sure your team has some level of fluency on just the variety of vehicles and different creative ways of structuring. I just recently spoke with somebody who is, in the midst of really making a transformational ask, a transformational solicitation, and they were able to package it with a cash plus bequest in a way that actually doubled the gift amount. But not everybody, gets exposure. It took me a long time to learn about some approaches like that. So I'm just curious, is that part of your job as a manager, for example, to think about other structuring approaches that could make now be the right time? Because my guess would be, of all of these, a development officer could always say, well, it's just not the right time. And, is that the one that people would lean on as to why we shouldn't be making the ask?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest one to say, if it's not ready. And then it gets back to, okay, well, if now's not the right time, when do you envision the right time being? Is it a life event that the donor is waiting for or going through? Because sometimes you can have a conversation with a donor, and I had experience with this, and it wasn't until they retired and that was their life event when they announced their retirement and moved that when they were ready to make that gift. And it was so understanding though each one is critical. The right time though is one of those. But okay, then how long has the individual been in cultivation mode? Has it been 18 months, 24 months that you've been working with this individual to move them along to get to the solicitation cycle? If it's not there yet, let's talk about why.
At any level, right? I mean,
at any level.
I started thinking we could do $1 million,
yep.
But now I'm not even comfortable asking for 100,000, and it's been 24 months. At some point,
yep.
You probably just have to, almost cut your losses and focus, elsewhere. Yep. I am curious a little bit about the right amount, and I think it's common in other sectors where products have price points. There can be some room for negotiation. But in the world of philanthropy, you will have donors this year who give you $1. and who give you over $1 million and everything in between. How do you start to triangulate around the right amount without asking, well, how much could you give? I mean,
Yeah.
are there questions or ways that you phrase it, even to get within, is it 7 figures, 6 figures, 5 figures? How do you start to feel somebody out without scaring them away, but also not, underselling the impact that they could make with something more significant?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think everyone's going to have a different strategy or different approach to that, and no one's right or wrong in their approach to that. At St. Mary's, when going through the strategic giving class, one of the things that we did, I'm going to give you your insider. We had to basically go through hypothetical but a real call, moving someone from a discovery. So it was with the instructor, with Audrey, the VP, from discovery to cultivation to making the ask, get the close, the stewardship. So we had to do all this in a matter of 4 days. And it was really an interesting process, because one thing that Audrey stressed is, when you give that proposal, they should know the amount that's coming. You should be having that conversation with them ahead of time. So it's one of the things that I took away, that when I work with our gift officers here, is if you're really unsure of that amount, the conversation before the ask, in a sense, is that feasibility conversation, that pre-proposal meeting, to fully understand, based on your previous conversation, the impact that could have, and this is the amount that impact could have, and then, in a sense, float that amount out there, and that should give you a good gauge of where they are at with their own philanthropic goals and comfort level.
Yeah, I think other leaders have shared helping, frame possibilities through options, right? Here's, scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. This is what $1 million could do, 2 million, 5 million, or it could be 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, or even 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. But it's sort of the way that, many companies will price their, their basic, their premium, or their pro. And it's sort of, lets you self-select into where you feel, you're ready to participate. And so I don't know if you've had scenarios where, where presenting options have helped frame the discussion to donors.
Yeah, and that's another one where everyone, I think, will have their own preference. I prefer one specific amount. I think when you get into options, I understand the options approach, but any chance that you can remove confusion when making the ask, I think you try to do that. And maybe not every time, but I think often when there are different amounts being offered in the ask, it can create some confusion from the donor. So I think if you can remove that aspect of it, I think it helps. It helps in the process.
Without sharing anything confidential about a specific donor or specific gift, are there any really memorable solicitations you've been in where you've been, I don't know, super nervous or really excited or unsure in spite of the 6 rights and the strategic giving framework and all of that? I mean, anything really stand out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the fun of this profession, and part of the fundraising industry is that excitement and that feeling you get in your stomach when you're about ready to go into a meeting to make that ask. And yeah, what I guess what I refer back to is when I was in college with one of our assistant football coaches. He had the saying, expect to win. So if you are doing and putting in the work and doing the things necessary throughout the week and at practice and whatnot, when you step on that field, you should expect to win. And in a sense, try to take that same approach with the 6 rights. If you're doing the work ahead of time and putting the work in, then you should feel confident and feel good about that number, that ask that you put in front of the individual. Are they all going to say yes or go with that? No, that's not going to happen, but you should feel confident about it. And, not all of them, and Not everyone has said yes when I made that ask either, but for the most part, I felt good about the numbers and the things that I put in front of people too. Because again, it hopefully in part of the cultivation, part of one of the rights, the right reason, the right purpose, is you're talking about the difference that gift is going to make, the impact that it's going to have, the lives it's going to change, the opportunities it's going to open, and really that's what it's all about.
Well, tell me a little bit about that, because I know right now you are working on some initiatives in campus that you believe in, where you are out selling that impact. We've talked about prior to this conversation some of the work you're doing with Gallagher Blue Dorn. I think it's a great example of a very specific interest area that is going to resonate incredibly well for certain supporters and maybe not for others. But I just love to kind of get your experience in that context. Tell people a little bit about what that fundraising initiative has been about.
So the Gallagher Blue Dorn Performing Arts Center is a performing arts center here on campus that really serves Northeast Iowa as one of the top and premier performing arts centers for an institution like UNI size. We're very proud of it. I think we should be. We get great performances in there. When it was built 20 years ago, they did a tremendous job on the Great Hall, so where performances are held. So that's one of the top, I think, in the state, if not across the country. But one of the things that could have been done better, and it was for financial reasons, was the patron amenities and the patron experience and what that looks like. So what we are working on right now is an expansion and renovation of the Gallagher Blue Dorn, really to enhance and improve the patron experience and amenities, because we have the performance hall right. That one was done well and done very well. So now we need to expand and make sure when people attend, they have a full performance from when they walk in the door to the final bow. So one of the things that we're talking about is the difference that this expansion and renovation will make for not only for patrons, but also for, the kids that come to Gallagher Blue Dorn, and this is their first exposure to the performing arts. How this will enhance the number of kids that we can get through and expose to the arts, how rather than, sitting on the floor to eat lunch, we'll be able to provide a nice room, a lounge for them to sit and enjoy their lunch. So just really expanding the amenities to enhance the experience.
It's been really interesting to learn about this, because we've spent a fair amount of time with customers, partners in the sector that have done so much around the fan experience. When you think about like the athletic fan experience, how much that has been talked about. But I do see some really neat examples of the patron experience in the arts, really wanting to rival what we're doing for fans in the athletics arena.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when, the executive director of the Gallagher Blue Dorn talks about, people come to the Gallagher and they're okay with standing in lines because it's just something that they do. They're nice, the Iowa nice, we've come to expect it. But that shouldn't be the way. When you come to the arts, you shouldn't have to wait in line 10, 15 minutes for a glass of wine, or you shouldn't pick your seats closest to the door so you can get out first to use the restroom or to refill your wine or whatever it may be. Those things should not be part of your decision-making process when buying tickets or when coming to the show. So having that full amenity experience that really delivers, moving from a ticket window to kiosks, where you can have more of an interaction, a point of sale, pick up your pre-ordered glass of wine. Those types of things, those types of experience that really make it, because when people come, they come for the show and they come for the social experience. And standing in line isn't a great social experience. So how do we improve on that and really make your time at the Gallagher Blue Dorn one to remember?
So really the same way that airlines have streamlined things through mobile ticketing or a kiosk, or the way that fast casual restaurants are helping, skip the line. Basically, how do we apply the same approach to the patron experience?
Yep.
I would imagine from a philanthropic perspective, that's an interesting project as well, because it's not necessarily an alumni constituency. I'm sure there's a tremendous mix of patrons, many of whom are alumni, but you've got broader community, maybe, even regional community. And so how do you think about the kind of prospect identification and relationship building approach when you're not just talking about the core alumni constituency.
Yeah, and you're right. It's alumni, of course, but there's a lot of friends from the community that that are involved in this process. It's a community-based project, and we're looking at, of course, you're looking at who are friends of the Gallagher Blue Dorn right now, meaning who they give to the annual campaign, who are ticket buyers, who maybe gave to the project 20 years ago, who are the longtime volunteers. Taking a look at ushers, taking a look at people that serve on boards. We're celebrating our 20th year at the Gallagher Blue Dorn this year. So who's involved and actively willing to participate in those celebrations and help plan for them? So taking a look at those types of things, and then of course trying to identify, who are those individuals from a social engagement perspective that may interact with Gallagher Blue Dorn from a Facebook or Instagram that we can identify and raise up to may have interest in this project.
Yeah, as we've been getting to know each other, we did a little bit of research, and we saw that there were nearly 20,000 fans on your Gallagher Blue Dorn Facebook page specifically. And I think one of the big questions we've been asking of the data with our partners is, okay, of those digitally engaged fans, how many have never bought tickets? Right? Of the people who've bought tickets, how many have never donated? And then how do you start using those different data points married with wealth indicators and so forth to really come up with an incredibly high affinity, very knowledgeable set of prospects who also have the capacity to really warrant the kind of extra level, VIP cultivation work that I'm sure you and the exec director are working on. So we're excited about continuing to try to dive into the data to streamline the prospect identification approach.
Yeah, we're looking forward to working closely with you on that as well.
Very cool. I guess any other thoughts when you think about where the advancement sector is over investing, or big changes that you'd like to see in the sector? I mean, one thing you talked about was just perception, and even when you talk about the perspective of playing to win or expecting to win, you're obviously very passionate about the business of advancement, but what did you mean when you wrote that you thought perception was an issue for the sector?
Yeah, and so one thing that I've shared with you, I love this sector. I love fundraising. I love advancement. I love philanthropy. So I'm always trying to listen to podcasts, read. The master's program was very beneficial, and I think one thing that did for me was open my eyes to the need of more research in our sector, in our industry, more research-based articles, books, various things. We have so much knowledge, but a lot of it may not be seated in research. So I think that can continue to help build the industry, provide validity to it. So the perception of fundraising isn't necessarily a negative one, where it's more of a positive one, which I firmly believe this is a tremendous industry. We're doing significant things and great work in providing opportunities. And I guess that's just, as I think about my role in this, not only at UNI, but in the bigger picture, what can I contribute to this industry to help build the perception that this is a worthwhile place to work, to continue to recruit people into the industry so more people don't just fall into it like myself and others. We're more intentional about our efforts to draw and recruit. And I think once people are in it, they quickly realize how special a place it is.
Absolutely. And obviously we're biased in the same way that you are, but I think, it's striking that you mentioned the book, The Artful Journey, earlier, yet you're also talking about maybe a more scientific journey as well, as we try to get more data driven. And I do think that there's going to be tremendous career opportunities. And even frankly, with the change that we've all been experiencing relating to coronavirus, it's going to change the way we work. It's going to change the way that donors want to be engaged or comfortable be engaging. It's going to change even what the definition of the right location might be. Maybe the right location is a Zoom video call over the coming months and years, whereas even 1 year ago that would have seemed completely maybe inappropriate or out of the question in some shops. And so it is an exciting time. You're obviously at the forefront of trying to embrace new ideas and new concepts, while at the same time getting the work done, raising the money, not getting distracted. And it's been really fun getting to know you and your team. I guess in closing, are you hiring? Are there other shops that are hiring, maybe within your cohort from St. Mary's? Where would you recommend a young professional who's looking to either start their career or advance their career turn to for resources as it relates to the sector?
We are hiring. We are hiring in our annual giving area. In fact, as I mentioned at the start, we had somebody on campus today, a candidate on campus. We are hiring in our student engagement, in our alumni association, and then we're also hiring in IT in our foundation. So we have three openings right now that we are trying to fill. Obviously, I have to give a plug to you and I to come work here. This is a tremendous place. It's been absolutely wonderful for me to not go to school here, but I fully feel like I'm an adopted Panther and love this place. It's so much about where you work is the people, and there is just tremendous people here at the University of Northern Iowa that make it a really neat place to work, to come to school. It's a tight-knit community, and I always talk to students. Of course, love talking to students, and that's what a lot of this work is about. But when you ask them, what is it about you and I, and it's about the relationships. They're not a number. The close relationships with faculty, with staff, with fellow students. So, and that's the way I feel too.
I love it. Well, Nate, thank you for giving us a window into your career, into your commitment to the sector, and for also why you're so excited about UNI specifically. Without further ado, we will wrap today's episode. Go Panthers.
Go Panthers.